Welcome to the No Name MMA show. My name is Andy Romero. Today is April 2nd, 2020. We're here to talk MMA and all things involved. With me is my lovely, nice, sweet, beautiful, sexy girlfriend. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Nina. I am Nina Hager. I'm Andy's girlfriend, and we also have our buddy Juan with us.
Hello, my name is Juan Chavez. The way I know Andy and Nina, I know Andy through where we used to work together a couple years ago, and then I met, obviously, Nina through Andy since they're dating. Yeah, and we're doing this podcast to kind of inform you guys and kind of just do this because we enjoy talking about UFC, MMA, all that kind of stuff. Since we like talking about it, might as well get information out to you guys. For those who don't know anything about UFC, MMA, Bellator, any of that kind of stuff, as well as for those who know about it and kind of just want to get a new perspective on it.
Yeah.
At least that's the reason why I do it. I really enjoy talking about it, and I could go hours.
Yeah. So we want to get people up to speed so that they know what they're watching and give our insight to what we're watching.
Just a brief overview of our credentials because we're fucking hotshots.
Yeah.
Nina, what was your first UFC fight or your favorite UFC fight?
Okay. I have been watching UFC for maybe almost 2 years now, and I am the newbie for sure. So I'm literally learning and will be asking all kinds of questions as we go along. But maybe the most memorable fight is Ben Askren and Jorge Masvidal.
I knew you were going to say it.
I saw Jorge once before, and I had no idea really what his, whole situation was until he was out of the octagon, finished with his fight, and who was he?
That was whenever he had knocked out Darren Till and Leon Edwards was talking shit
in the back, after
Three
the
piece
fight.
and a soda.
Yeah. And he
Three-piece
just
and a soda.
friggin' hit him to the ground right then, and I was like, I can't wait to watch him fight again. Yeah. What about you guys?
I thought he was going to fight Leon next after he did that, but whatever.
What was your first fight that you remember watching?
Who did I say it was?
I think it was Stipe versus DC1.
Because we were at your place, and it was... No.
We were at Kobe's place.
Yeah.
And I was like fucked up.
Not
yeah.
Kobe Covington's place.
Not Kobe Covington.
A different
Kobe.
Yeah.
And I was fucked up, and I was so stoked for DC getting the chance, and then shit went down.
Yeah, so that was my first fight.
How long have you been watching?
I think that was the first fight. So how
That must have been
that was at least
4 years ago.
Yeah,
something like that.
Okay.
Two minimum.
Yeah.
3.5 max.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Something like that. But I enjoyed it. It's as soon as, I watched a couple fights, whenever I was younger, but I never really got into it, just because I had never found something to be able to sit down and watch and to be able to keep up with stats. That was really hard for me.
It is hard because there's so many things that go into fighting, especially through UFC. And some of the other organizations we'll talk about, I guess, as things continue with the podcast. But there's different fighters, there's different weight divisions, there's different state laws, there's different refs, there's different judges. So there's so many aspects that go into it that make it fun to keep up with, but a lot to take in right away.
Keeping up with Ben Askren, the first fight that you had mentioned, he went from one championship, which he was undefeated at, and then once he came over here, so it's just to be able to keep up with him because he did go through so many different organizations. It would have been hard for me whenever I was younger. But I don't know.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
no, Ben Askren, had it not been for Joe Rogan talking about him, I wouldn't have known who the fuck he was. And then more and more paying attention, I was like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then Jorge Masvidal humbled him.
Quick.
YouTube helped.
Yeah,
helps
real
out a
quick.
lot.
World record quick.
Yeah. What was your first like memorable fight?
So I'm, I guess, the resident old head of MMA. I've been watching since Stephan Bonner versus Forrest Griffin for the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 season finale. That was back when you could watch some fights on Spike TV. For those that are newer people, you won't know what that is, but that's where it used to be on if it wasn't a pay-per-view event. And it was, this reality TV show where people were just fighting for the chance to get into a UFC contract.
Fear Factor played on Spike TV.
I was
didn't it?
just
Yeah.
thinking that too. The Joe Rogan channel, Spike TV.
And yeah, so that was just the epic bloodbath. One of the best fights I've ever seen. I mean, especially as a young kid, I think, that was 2006, 2005, something like that. And just going into it, just seeing the spectacle of the violence, I think that was the biggest draw. Obviously, I didn't know what I was watching. I mean, that didn't come until a couple of years later. Now I can kind of be like, oh yeah, I know what they're doing. But back then it was just like, oh, this is so cool, like it's so violent. But the more and more you learn and figure out about the sport, I think the more and more you get infatuated with it. It's one of those things where there's a lot of intricacies,
Yeah.
so it's a deep dive if you're really, really into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what did it for me. That Stephan Bonner Forrest Griffin fight.
And we're all hooked now.
Yes.
We're
I think,
hooked,
yeah.
hanging out, watching it with the homies on the regular.
Oh, definitely.
Cool. So for today's episode, we do really want to get into some headline type of things that are going to be going on, especially right now with coronavirus, postponing events, canceling, rescheduling. But we thought it would be helpful for anyone who's newer into learning about MMA or the UFC to get a little quick crash course just so that you know sort of what you're looking at when you walk into a Buffalo Wild Wings and sit down and you start watching it. So real quick, the things you have to know for any of this to make sense really is that for each event, it's broken into two parts. The first are preliminary fights. The second is the main card. Your prelim fights are going to vary with different categories of fighters. There's going to be about 5 to 6 fights, and they're your less popular fighters. Your main card is going to be what you watch on maybe a pay-per-view or other kind of
Like a
programmed.
ESPN Plus, ESPN. It all depends on the venue.
Yeah. And that is going to be 5 to 6 fights. Again, various fighters in different weight classes. Most of the fights are going to be 3 5-minute rounds. Championship fights will be 5 5-minute rounds, the same as the last fight of the night, which is your main event, which will also go 5 5-minute rounds. And that's kind of what you just have to know to get started.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just before we get started, these are our opinions, so fucking suck it. If you agree or disagree, though, feel free to email us or comment. Our email is nonamemmashow@gmail.com. So let's do the damn thing.
Tell us what is happening in the world of the UFC today, fellas.
Well, the biggest news, obviously, around the whole world is this coronavirus. I can't go anywhere without seeing coronavirus. It's on my Twitter.
We can't go anywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah, we can't go anywhere. So.
Technically, yeah.
We shouldn't be here, but it's okay.
Social distancing.
It's important.
It's important.
Wash your hands.
The Khabib and Tony fight.
Oh my gosh.
That is ridiculous. That is now the 5th time that it got rescheduled. The first time you probably remember. I wasn't there. The first
This
time.
was so the first time it got canceled. Khabib had gotten an injury, I believe. The second time it had gotten canceled, Tony had fluid in his lungs and had to get called out by a doctor. Like you can't fight.
But were you were you waiting to watch the first fight? Like were you
No.
there? Like
I was invested into the fight the third time it had tried to happen.
And
At
what
that
happened
point,
there? Yeah.
So the third time it gotten canceled, Khabib had a really bad weight cut, and I think they found fluid in his lungs. I'm not sure, or kidney failure. I don't know. It was a bad weight cut.
I do remember reading about that.
So that's
I do
where
remember reading about that.
like the doctor said, no, you can't fight. And then the fourth time it got canceled,
Another
Tony
injury,
Ferguson, yeah. So Tony Ferguson, the man that he is, the god that he is, was wearing glasses inside because that's what he does. And he tripped over a wire and fucked up his knee and had to get major knee surgery. So that's when it got canceled. That was 2018, April Fools. And then the last time, 2020, April Fools. Khabib is in Dagestan right now. He is not trying to come out. He's like, yo, Corona's actually serious. Like, everybody should know this. I'm not above Corona. So, yeah.
I'm super bummed about it because, like you said, Tony Ferguson, the character, the god, the most Looney Tune fighter, I feel like, which I love
fair.
him
That's fair.
wholeheartedly for. For, like you guys said, the 5th time has been canceled. Why isn't Tony just going to Russia to fight if Khabib won't come back to the States?
I don't know if there's some kind of conflict there. Oh, wait, there is a conflict there. So, Russia is completely shutting down their borders. No one can leave, and only go ahead.
So with that being said, they are, except for business travel. So that's where the loophole would have been that Khabib could have traveled for business. That's where he could have either traveled to Abu Dhabi, gotten in and gotten out for the fight, just because the borders aren't closed yet. Or he could have traveled to the States on a work requirement and gotten away with it. So it's not technically that he was banned because he could have stated that it was business. It was just one of those things where he's taking precaution. He's like, hey, I don't want to fuck with this Corona thing. I'm just gonna stay where I'm at with my loved ones.
Why is Tony not going there?
Well, also Khabib said that it was something along the lines that he is in training right now. Tony was down for Russia. I don't think he's down to go to Dagestan.
Okay.
And even if they could do it in Dagestan, I don't think they have a facility set up to do it in Dagestan.
Mm-hmm.
The last I read was that because as of when I read this, Florida still hadn't put down a state quarantine, so no stay-at-home requirement yet. That I think changed a couple of days ago. So as of a couple of days ago, Florida was the best destination just because they were more lax for the quarantine. As of now, they are not. But that's where it was going to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
But then it never happened. So
Boo. Is it ever gonna happen?
no.
It'll
the world
never
will
happen.
end.
You know who
The-
wants to
What
go
the
to
freaking heck?
Russia?
Who?
McGregor. McGregor wants to go to
Oh
Russia.
my gosh. So
I don't think
Khabib's
that's
the
not gonna
champ
happen.
too.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
McGregor just hopped right back into the ring after being gone for 2 years.
Well, Khabib can always deny it.
Yeah.
Khabib can. He is not.
Well, also, yeah, Khabib mopped the floor with McGregor.
But I'm saying,
except for
like,
one round.
But I understand what you're saying.
Khabib's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
champ.
Mhm.
Tony is the next person to fight him.
Yeah.
And McGregor is just for sure a popular money bringer-inner, but he's hopping the line all the way to championship after
I don't believe
one
so.
fight. Yeah.
I don't think so. I think McGregor will have to fight somebody in order to get in line.
Yeah, he's got.
And that's where, usually he could do that. He already did it, though. Mm-hmm. He just fought Khabib and lost. He fought Cowboy, but I don't think Cowboy as a top 10 getting beat endorses you to get a championship fight.
Not Cowboy.
That's what I'm saying, though. You need
not
another.
Cowboy.
You need another
Alright.
fight under your belt, and that is gonna be Gaethje.
But regardless, all right. So if it was any other person besides for Khabib,
And Tony.
no, Khabib, because Khabib has this personal vendetta, this personal grudge
Yeah.
against McGregor. He knows that McGregor wants his title, so he's like, you know what, I control this. If I want to fight you, I'll fight you. But if I don't want to fight you, I don't have to fight you. So I'm not gonna fight you.
I mean, that's
So-
true. But out of Khabib's own mouth, he said, if he fought Justin Gaethje and won, I would consider fighting him again. So that's his ticket. It's fighting Justin Gaethje, unless he fights Tony.
Oh yeah.
So, with this fight for UFC 249, now canceled with Tony and Khabib, would it be Tony's fight to pick somebody else up, or would it be Khabib since he's the champion?
The offer went to Tony because
Okay.
Khabib's not going anywhere.
Got
So
it.
the offer is for Tony to fight Justin Gaethje.
But
That is the opponent,
and
unless
Tony's like,
Conor
no,
comes out of
I
nowhere.
want the champion fight. I've been
Yeah,
waiting and
so,
ready for it.
That's what I would
bear
do
with me
if I
one
was
second.
him.
Yeah.
And that's where,
If I
I
was
think
him,
everybody's
I
in
would be like,
agreement that Tony
Tony's
doesn't need to
proven
fight.
himself.
No.
He's
Yeah.
fought all those other fights, and now he's just ready for his last opponent.
Because at this point, if
Yeah.
he keeps fighting people, who's he gonna fight when he's a champion?
Yeah, it's just like nobody's left.
Yeah.
What's it called?
I guess that would give him a ticket for another division. Like
I mean, he
straight away,
did
like-
whenever he was in the Ultimate Fighter, he did fight at 170. So Tony was a big man,
All
and he just cut
saying,
down.
dude,
So.
what I'm saying.
But as per Ariel Helwani, whenever he was asking Tony, like, yo, how do you feel about this? Quote, nobody else deserves that ass whooping other than two people. That's McNuggets and Team
Yeah.
Tiramisu. That's Khabib and Conor. So I don't think anybody besides Khabib works unless it's Conor.
Unless
And
it's
that's the perfect puzzle piece, because if you get that fight, then you possibly get Khabib versus Tony, or
Right.
you possibly get Khabib versus Conor too. Obviously, everybody wants to see Tony versus Khabib, but
I do not think
Best
Conor's
man.
on the table at all. I do not think Khabib is going to give Conor regardless.
I don't think any fight's gonna happen. I think nothing's
Tony's
gonna happen.
Gonna go
You
find
think the
another
coronavirus
Ninja
is
Turtle.
set in stone?
Well,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another subject that came to mind. There was further postponements announced today. So the California State Athletic Commission, so CSAC, stated that no events would take place in the month of May. So the next biggest card that
Yeah,
I knew was going to
that
happen in May
canceled.
was going to be the Dustin Poirier, who was another fighter tapped to fight Tony, against Dan Hooker. So that event will no longer take place in California. That's not to say that it's canceled. Again, UFC 249, from what is official, is still not canceled.
Yeah.
Fucking Dana White still has buy tickets for Tony versus Khabib still on his Twitter. So
I think that's part of what makes the UFC so fun to like be a fan of, is it's not like any other sports organization. They are not held to the same regulation as the NFL or anybody else. They
John
just do whatever they want to do.
John Jones.
we'll save John Jones for last, just because I have an opinion and it's gonna be a long opinion. Okay.
Real quick though,
Yeah.
I want to clarify for anyone who's listening. Only places that fights would not be taking place is California. That's the only commission. Commission meaning there's different. Every fight is going to be under a different state's commission or wherever they're at. I was kind of confused about that whenever I first heard about it, I didn't understand. I was like, but it's the company, so I don't understand.
Yeah. So
I do just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Other states are still accepting fights.
yeah.
Just not
So the thing with athletic commissions, the thing that differs between the UFC and like say basketball or football is that football has one governing body for all the whatever. So pay, rules, events. It's all under one umbrella. UFC travels a lot and they are contract fighters, so it's just like a contractor. So there's no specific like lobby or union where they can all get in. So it all differs between state rules. So California has their athletic commission, Nevada has their athletic commission, New York has their athletic commission, and each one adopts or uses different rules or pays or anything in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So Khabib versus Tony is canceled. 4 fighters came out and said, pick me, pick me. George said he is ready, and Kamaru Usman, so I'm talking about Jorge Masvidal, said he's ready, and Usman said, that is Kamaru Usman, said they were both down to, swing shit. And also, Tyron Woodley was in a previous card with Leon Edwards, the aforementioned guy that got punched in the face by Jorge Masvidal in the back. Mm-hmm. That one fell through because of coronavirus. It was supposed to take place in London, I believe, this week. I'm not sure. But Tyron had Colby Covington come out and say, we're down to fight. Both of the fights have not been agreed upon. Both of them have essentially nothing's happened.
Well, it's originally them, both of them say like they were talking shit back and forth, and so,
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're both.
No. Like I'm talking about since that was offered, they have both verbally agreed to it or put it on Twitter, but then neither one of them.
Yeah. I mean, they both said they're down, but nobody signed paperwork.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, first, how are you going to sign paperwork for an event that has no location? Mm-hmm. Second, both of you, like all 4 of those fighters, nobody's agreed upon anything. They're all just kind of like, I'm down, but also he has to sign. And they're all kind of playing that like, but you first.
Woodley said he won't fight Covington if he doesn't fight him this time.
That's fair.
He's done.
I mean, yeah, Covington is kind of... I'm not saying he's ducked him. I think Colby Covington just thinks that he deserves Conor money. But, homeboy, you're not even more popular than Dustin Poirier. So,
I understand what he was doing with being a heel. I understand.
I mean, I get it. Yeah.
But
no, I get it. If people want to see you lose, they want to see you.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. But in terms of those 2 fights, which one would you rather watch? Jorge versus Usman or Tyron Woodley against Covington? I know my pick.
I would pick Usman.
Yeah, I'd say Usman and Jorge. I'm tired of Colby Covington.
I would
I'm
prefer.
I'm so glad Usman knocked him in his big, loud yappity yapper and broke that dang jaw right then and there. It was such poetic justice.
Good shit.
And I'm over him. Especially all that shit he was saying about Joanna.
Yeah. So, my pick was Tyron versus Covington, just to be fair. I think that would be a great fight. I think rivalries are far and few in between. Not saying that every fight has to be a rivalry. Just sometimes when it's like legit, it kind of feels good.
To see that fight.
It still is like enjoyable to hate him. Yeah, and watch him.
Usman.
Yeah.
Well, originally I wasn't a fan of Usman, but that was just because I didn't know anything about him. But then,
I mean, yeah, that's fair. Yeah. But ever since, I mean, that Covington versus Usman fight was real.
Woodley versus Usman fight.
Woodley versus Usman, that was boring. That was a manslaughter. Homeboy did not do anything.
That's whenever I started.
That's fair. Yeah. Like kind of being like, okay, I respect you. Like that shit was dope. Nah, I feel you on that. But the Covington versus Usman fight, I think, garnered my respect for both of them. And also, it was a hell of a fight. I mean, it was down to the wire. Some people had
I've always
it as...
respected Covington as a fighter.
Yeah, his
Whenever
endurance.
Yeah.
Whenever I saw how far he can go, how long he can go.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I just cringe every time he sticks his tongue out at the camera.
Yeah.
Always. It's so cringy.
Speaking of Kobe Covington, whenever he was talking to MMAfighting.com, he was going into details about his feud with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Per his quote, "I know last week she tried to flirt with me and I wasn't giving her the time of day because, let's be honest, I have standards and she doesn't fit those standards.
Jesus.
She's not a 7.5 and up, and I only message 7.5s and up." So my biggest takeaway from this is, how is Kobe Covington this valuable to American Top Team? American Top Team, by the way, for those that don't know, is the gym where Dustin Poirier fights out of, Jorge Masvidal, who is another person that's against Kobe Covington, and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I don't understand why he's still at this gym. Nobody likes him.
No.
Everybody fucking hates him or wants to
How much
fight
is
him.
he paying the coach?
Apparently, from Jorge Masvidal, he's stiffing him. So that's where it's just like maybe one of those things where it's like bad publicity.
Not
Bad
adding up.
publicity is good
So-
publicity, but
Yeah.
even then, it's just like it's ruining the fucking energy inside of your gym. Like, there's no way this could be healthy for like all the other fighters.
I see what you're saying, where it's not adding up because, like, all right,
Yeah.
like, they would kick him out. But if you're looking at it from the coach's perspective, who doesn't have the money yet, yo, I need that money. So you're gonna stay here until
I get it?
Until I get that money.
True.
That's fair. I don't know. This is just another thing where it's just like, I get it. Like, obviously you hear that and you go like, man, fuck this dude. But like, it's just not worth it for me in a perspective of like, I'm the coach of these people and they all hate this one dude. I'm just gonna kick that dude out.
Yeah.
They're all championship caliber fighters. So it's not like Kobe's your one and done. Like, Dustin Poirier just fought for the title. Fucking Joanna just fought for the title in one of the best fights in MMA history.
Literally knocked us out of our seats.
Yeah, no, I had her winning that fight.
What
So
a
that was possibly
fight.
a championship, like a champion right there.
What a fight.
And then fucking Jorge Masvidal is about to fight for the title. There's no way that Usman fight doesn't happen. It's just a matter of when. So that's where it's just like, I don't see the positive here. I don't see what you gain from this. But enough about Kobe. He gets all the attention because, you know, that's what he does.
Yeah.
Moving on. So,
What else is headlining?
in other news about the UFC 249 card, so going into it, they asked Joe Rogan, what do you feel about it? He's like, he will not call the fight. It's a cursed fight. He is not going to travel. He's not going to do anything because of Corona. Whenever being asked by MMAfighting.com, John Anik, the other commentator on the UFC pay-per-view cards, says pretty much he doesn't give a fuck. He's willing to travel, go to and from Florida to Nevada, Las Vegas, wherever the fuck it is, and
Would
he
you?
will be there.
Would you call the fight?
I'd be too heartbroken not to watch Tony and Khabib, maybe.
All right,
Initially,
but that's two
yes.
different things, though. That's two
Yeah.
different
Well,
things. So.
okay, so say it. Tony
I'd travel
Khabib
for
does it
Khabib
happen.
and Tony.
He said as of today, I think, that he
Yeah.
would travel for the card. So that means Tony and Khabib is off the table.
I know. That's where I'm saying I would have for that.
But
I would travel in Corona for
yeah,
Khabib
no,
versus
I think
Ferguson.
I would.
Yeah.
And that's
I'll
probably it, though.
100%.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
risk.
100%
I would risk
That's it.
risk the Rona for that.
Now I'd say no. So
What
I
a
get it.
brawl, though! Like, what a brawl that would have been.
Yeah.
Because I think for round 1 and 2 that would have been on the feet, and then 3 through championship rounds.
Yeah.
Would have been.
I don't even know. My brain just, that's why it's never gonna happen. It's like the Matrix eating another Matrix. Your brain just explodes. It just fucking just leaves your body. You don't know what the fuck is happening. From that, again, like I was mentioning before, so Dustin Poirier got tapped He was scheduled to fight Dan Hooker on May 16th. Poirier said he's down to fight Tony. He thinks that he would beat Tony. I disagree. But he would be willing to fight Tony and also possibly give Justin Gaethje a rematch. And I think that would be a good fight. But I think what I think happens is, so Tony Khabib happens. I just think it just gets rescheduled. That's fucking how the cookie crumbles. It's a weird lineup for the top 5 in that division just because Khabib and Tony are there.
What division is that?
This is going to be the lightweight division, so 155. You got Khabib up top, Tony number 1. I'm pretty sure Justin Gaethje's number 2, Connor's number 3, Dan Hooker's 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Dan Hooker's fighting. He is making some fights happen.
Yeah, so that's where it's weird in terms of, so you get Tony and Khabib. That leaves you with Gaethje versus Connor, obviously. And then from there you get Dustin Poirier against Dan Hooker, which makes sense. But if it gets switched, that means Dustin Poirier would be going up against Justin Gaethje, and Conor McGregor's not going to fight Dan Hooker, because who the fuck is Dan Hooker to Conor McGregor?
Real quick, why do you think Dustin Poirier is gonna lose to
Tony?
Ferguson? Yep, Ferguson.
Tony's ground game, I think, in that division is one of the most impressive ground games that you have. I don't think anybody else in that level has his ground game because he is comfortable on his back.
Yeah.
So the thing that stood out to me the most during the Khabib versus Conor fight is that Khabib doesn't have really good defense wrestling. That was my biggest draw from it. It's just like, oh yeah, he's a animal if he's on top of you, but he doesn't know what to do when he's on his back. And that's where like Tony's comfortable on his back. Mm-hmm. So he can kind of move you around and do shit. In terms of what Conor was capable of, Tony's gonna be a lot worse.
I don't know what camp he's at now, but he was at a jiu-jitsu camp, I believe. Poirier. Anyways, back to the rankings real quick, just to clarify, make sure we're not putting out any wrong information. The rankings for the lightweight division, as far as top 5, is gonna be Khabib, who's champion, and then it's Tony Ferguson. Dustin Poirier at number 2, Conor McGregor at number 3, Justin Gaethje at number 4, Dan Hooker at number 5.
Fair. I wasn't terribly wrong, just a little wrong. That's okay. That's okay though.
Always.
Besides that, there is one hot take that I wanted to call out right quick. So speaking with Ariel Helwani, Sean O'Malley, stated that
what a monster.
He stated that he would be a tough matchup against Henry Cejudo.
I see it. I see it. No, you're good. You're good. It's okay.
I don't. I think he gets. I don't think he's a good matchup for any of the top 15 right now. I mean, think about it. You got Henry Cejudo, you got Marlon Moraes, you get Aljamain Sterling, you got Petr Yan.
You think he is
you
a
have
good matchup,
Aldo.
or he's not?
I don't think so. You got Aldo, you got Frankie Edgar, you got Corey Sandhagen. Dude, look at those names. And Sean O'Malley's like, I would be a tough matchup against Henry Cejudo. Did you not see what Marlon Moraes, like what happened to him? And he's a striker.
You don't think Sean O'Malley stands up against any of them? You don't think Sean O'Malley stands up against any of them?
I think he wins against Frankie Edgar.
You think Frankie Edgar's done? You think he's out of his prime?
Yeah, kind of.
Ah.
It sucks. It sucks. It sucks. Hey.
You're right. I think
it's one of those things where, like, you know, it's tough to say, but you gotta say it.
Barboza's done in the lightweight division too.
Nah. Justin Gaethje's just so fucking good.
I think he's done.
Look what he fucking did to Dan Hooker.
All right. First of all, Gaethje, he gets rocked too many times. You can't get rocked that many times as champion
That's what I'm saying, though. But look, what I'm saying is, look at what Barbosa did to Dan Hooker. He annihilated the man. The man couldn't stand. He couldn't even, like, lift his body up.
When was that fight?
I don't know. That was last year. Around this time, I think.
Didn't he get robbed? His last fight?
Who, Dan Hooker?
No. Barboza.
Barbosa?
Pretty.
I'm not sure.
We'll figure that out.
I'm not sure who won, but as I'm looking this up, yeah, no. Going back to Sean O'Malley, I don't think. I mean, you just got so many top-notch dudes up at the top.
Dude, but Sean O'Malley, he's so diverse with his hands, and I don't know his ground game like that. So, if against any like brilliant jiu-jitsu fighter, I'll give that to you. But
and that was just, I'm just talking about striking. Fucking Henry Cejudo wrestling. Sean O'Malley's like getting taken down, man. Like, you just don't. I don't know. He just doesn't.
I just feel like you're not giving him any credit, dude. His style was nasty. Now, granted,
he won a fight for the
now,
first time in 2 years recently. I'm thinking I'm giving him enough credit.
All right, how long was Nate Diaz out for? 2 or 3?
2.
All right, but it was so impressive that he won his fight, coming back out of 2 years.
It was
no
it
fights.
was against
Impressive.
Who was that fight against?
Why
am I forgetting this?
Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal.
No, the one before that.
No. It's right after Pettis.
Yeah, Pettis, a former champion and a top 5 contender. Yeah, that's impressive. Coming off of a 2-year delay. Yeah, impressive. You fighting an unranked fighter and beating him? Less impressive?
All right, I give you that.
Fair?
Fair.
All is fair in the world again.
I'm trying to pick up this Barbosa thing. Let's end this on a final thought while I'm looking up the Edson Barbosa thing.
John freaking Jones.
So, John Jones, last week, again, this is April 2nd, so has fallen again in terms of legally speaking. He was pulled over, blew double the amount over for alcohol consumption, and possibly fired his gun. The police stopped him. There was body cam video.
Did you guys watch it?
Yes, I watched it.
I watched it. It was cringy. It was cringy.
So go ahead, babe. What do you? I know how you feel. I don't.
Let me just start by saying, John Bones Jones is an amazing, amazing, amazing fighter. He is very much, you have to respect him for what he has done in his career. He is also quite the little biatch. And his holier than thou, preaching after his sins attitude is so much of a character flaw that I can't even get past it. And so this is just an inevitable another point on his record for me.
Juan, what's your take on the John Jones thing?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. After all his fights, he would say, "Oh, I'm just blessed, you know. God's letting me do his work. Blah, blah, blah." It's all fake. He said, I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast to get more information, to see if he had any more information. Apparently, he was talking about how he was going to be out there with homeless people.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, so in the
I
body
did watch
cam
it, but
footage, he mentioned that he was trying to, interact with the homeless people of Albuquerque just because they're people too. I'm not making light of this. It's just one of those things. It's like what, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Your actions
You're
are going to
drunk.
speak so much louder than your words. And his words just go so in a direction about his faith, and they don't line up with one another. And it is literally, I was just saying this week too, like, I'm surprised there hasn't been CTE murder in the UFC.
That's fair.
And John Jones is seeming like he's literally heading down that path of somebody like Aaron Hernandez or something.
I don't know if he's gotten checked, but if he hasn't gotten checked, I think the reason why he hasn't, his perspective on it is, I haven't gotten knocked out. No one's rocked me.
Yeah.
I think the closest people that rocked him, that Gustafsson, his first Gustafsson fight,
Yeah.
and then Thiago Santos and what's his face?
Dominic Reyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're the only three, I think.
My take, it's along the same lines as DC. He was having a show with Ariel.
I saw that.
I don't like John Jones by any stretch of the imagination. I do recognize that he is one of the greatest fighters to ever step in the
What
octagon.
a fighter.
I
What a
think
fighter.
everybody can agree on that, and if you don't, you're an idiot. That's not an opinion. You can't just say that somebody who's been in championship fights since he's like 23 and has been winning all of them, he's not talented. Whenever I was watching the body cam footage, I mean, I was one of the first ones to be like, dude, really, under quarantine, you can't even fucking stay under? You can't not fucking drink and drive? It's one of those, the jokes is just like, hey, at least this is normal. This brings normalcy back into my life. I made that fucking joke. I think watching the body cam footage, it's sad. I didn't get any pleasure. I just saw, like, just homeboy being fucking drunk as shit, scared, and trying to figure out a way to get out of it. And that was the opposite of what he presents himself as a fighter. So it's just like that weird, like, if like you saw your dad get his ass beat in front of you, it'd be like, what? That kind of thing.
I've been at a point with John Jones to where anything that he says, anything that he does, I know he's a good fighter. I when he fights, I usually bet on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything he says, anything he does, I don't pay attention to.
Yeah.
so
I don't
hard.
have respect for it.
It's like you have to completely separate him in the octagon versus him as a person in the world.
Yep.
Because you can't, like, root for a guy like that.
He's literally that one character, Deadpool, but from Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, bro, shut your mouth and fight.
Yeah.
And you're solid.
The only thing I differ on with DC is DC wants him to stay with the UFC.
Cool.
I think not as like a punishment. I think it's just time.
It's time for him to start having some kind of consequences for his actions in the real world.
Yeah, so it's just like everybody's talking about what's rock bottom for John Jones. He keeps on fucking up, blah, blah, blah. That used to be rock bottom. That used to be... You know what's rock bottom? When you lose your fucking livelihood. Mm-hmm. And I don't wish that upon anybody, just because that's the most fucked up thing, I think. Like, I enjoy work, and I like working. So if somebody was just like, that guy needs to lose his job, I'd be super fucking pissed.
But if one person deserved it...
But that's where I think you think about that, and you think, this person was in a vehicle way too fucked up, and you could have cost a life. That's where my difference of opinion is. Just
And
like,
it's not the
I would
first
rather
time.
somebody hit rock bottom and lose their job versus possibly taking away a life just because they don't understand consequence.
It's
And-
just the privilege that he's gotten away with it for long enough that if something was to change his irresponsibility when it comes to hit and runs or shooting off guns, like, there's got to be some kind of law that this guy answers to at some point, and if he's not going to answer to the law, then maybe he, like, loses part of his
Well, a part.
thunder in his career.
I think a lot of it is just knowing, like, yo, he is truly the baddest person on the planet. Like, and he knows that. Like,
Yeah.
now, does that put him above the law?
No.
Not at all.
Yeah,
But
no.
that gives
But
him,
yeah, to
that-
your point, it's just like
that gives him that confidence. That gives him this, like,
just I just imagine the hood rat shit that I was doing when I was 23.
exactly.
I am 30 or 29, sorry. But just to be like
30.
at 23 to be able to say that you're the world champion of one of the most competitive weight classes in a professional sport,
Homie was
to
on
have
Antisol.
the fame,
Snap.
have the money, it's just one of those perfect storms where if you're not ready for it, John Jones. That's what happens. But I think that's the thing that makes you hit rock bottom. I think if the UFC cuts him, of course he's gonna end up fighting for Bellator. Who the fuck doesn't think that's gonna happen? It's not like John Jones goes away.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, no, you gotta fucking do better, and this is what happens.
Do you think John Jones is still gonna fight after he leaves UFC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna. He is set for life. Homie is set for life.
Yeah, but I don't think he knows anything other than fighting.
He doesn't have to do
Think
anything.
about
He's
that's not how life. Like, I don't have to do anything, but if I've been doing a certain thing for the longest stint of time, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm down. Like, that's all he knows. That's all he knows.
He can go to an eye poking factory or something after he's done in the UFC.
So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up.
No.
One last note before we leave. So, the fight that we were talking about, Edson Barbosa, he had fought Paul Felder and lost.
Wow, he was robbed.
He was robbed, I think. Well, he wasn't robbed. It was a pretty close fight. I think
Pretty sure
the
there was
wrong
other fights on that card.
I
What card
think
was
the
it,
wrong
you know?
person won, but don't leave it up to the judges. The judges are retards. Yeah. Cool.
We
Yeah.
can get. on
That's
that-
a whole nother
Yeah, we can talk about
topic
judging.
for
but-
another day.
All right. With that being said, I think we're all done from Andy Romero.
Nina Hager.
Juan Chavez.
Thank you for listening to this, and hope to see you next time.
Say the email again.
Oh yeah. Again, if you want to talk shit or say what's up, hit us up. Our email is nonamemmashow@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below, or whatever. Stalk us. Later.